So we are going to start. Welcome to Total Disclosure, where we go beyond the veil of secrecy and into the heart of the unexplained. Today, we're honored to speak with two retired Air Force officers whose experiences have become central to the UFO and the UAP discussion. Captain Robert Salas, stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. Captain Dave Schindele. Schindele. Stationed at...
Forget the first E. Shindele.
I can't get it right, it's in my head now. Stationed at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, where both were entrusted with the control of nuclear missiles during the height of the Cold War. In the late 1960s, each of these men were a part of something extraordinary, something that not only challenged their understanding of reality, but also left a profound mark on our nation's military history. Their stories involved unidentified flying objects, sudden missile shutdowns, and a wall of secrecy that has persisted for over 5 decades. Today, we delve into their experiences, the implication for national security, and what these events could mean for humanity's future. This is not science fiction. This is total disclosure. So, I just want each of you to briefly introduce your role and responsibilities during your time in the Air Force. So we could start with Captain Salas.
Thank you, Tyler. I was stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base starting in the summer of 1966. And after getting qualified as a two-man crew, Colonel Fred Mywald and I were crewed up and assigned to the 490th Missile Squadron, 490th Missile Squadron. And our normal station was Oscar Flight, which is a location of what we called a launch control center or launch control facility. And that facility was an underground capsule, 60 feet underground, where we would spend a 24-hour period on alert status, meaning ready to launch missiles if given the proper command.
So if the president called an order to strike, you were one of the men who would
actually launch the missiles.
Wow.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right.
So on this one evening, March 24th, 1967, my commander was taking a rest break. We had a little cot down there, and since one of us had to be on alert at all times, he was taking a rest break. I was in charge of the facility, and I remember getting a phone call from the upstairs, what we called a flight security controller, who controlled the security teams, security alert teams, or SAT teams, we call them, that would respond to any security concerns, right? At any rate, I get this call, and he gives me this strange commentary of he and the other guards looking at the night sky, it was evening, and seeing lights flying above us, above our facility in a strange manner. They would be going very fast. They heard no engine noise. They were able to stop in midair and reverse course. They were able to make 90-degree turns. May sound familiar from other reports,
right.
But at any rate, he said, "Sir, these are not aircraft. They're not aircraft. They don't behave like aircraft." And he kept repeating that. And finally I said, "You mean like UFOs?" Because we had indeed seen reports in the local newspaper of people reporting UFO sightings in Great Falls, Montana, where we lived. I was just joking, but he wasn't. He was very serious about this report. He was a bit concerned because of these lights didn't seem to go away. They were just flying above him. And said, okay, let me know if something more interesting happens. Basically hung up. But I took it as a serious call. It was not a joke.
Right.
So 5 minutes later, he calls back. And this time I can tell by his voice that he's extremely frightened. He's shouting into the phone. He's babbling, making no sense. I had to calm him down. And when I was able to do that, he told me that he had all the guards with their weapons drawn, looking at this red-orange light, a very bright light, a large light.
Right.
And at times it was pulsate, but he said it's hovering above the front gate. And he wanted me to tell him what to do. Of course, I was no protocol. I was as shocked as he was, but when he said that, I had no idea what to tell him.
Right.
But I did say, ensure the security of the facility.
Right.
Really, that's
by any means.
By any means, that's their duty. That's their job. Not to allow anyone in that fenced area.
Right.
Do whatever you have to do. That's what I told him. Then he said one of the guards got injured, and he hung up the phone. I went over to talk to my commander then, who was just getting up from his rest break, just about to tell him about the phone calls when we get a large sounding klaxon noise in the capsule, and we know what that meant. It meant that there was a problem with one of the missiles. So we look over at our panel that has the status of the missiles, green for ready to launch,
right.
and red for can't launch, no go. So one of them had turned red, and then very quickly after that, all the rest of them went down.
Now, I want to make a point here, because most people watching, they don't understand this aspect of it. Now, each of these missiles, they are analog, not analog, but they aren't tied to each other. Therefore, if one goes down, they're not all going to go
That's
down.
Correct.
So
That's
to
correct.
be able to simultaneously shut down up to 12 missiles,
10
missiles, you're shutting down one by one. You're not shutting one
That's
thing
correct.
down and it all goes down.
That's correct.
So how calm, had this ever happened before?
No. I was stationed there for 3 years as a missile launch officer, and before that happened, I think I had once seen a missile go red, no go, but it was due to another issue, but never multiple.
Okay. So what becomes the protocol at that point? Because there's no textbook anymore. The textbook you had learned for protocols and how to handle these kind of things, I mean, we're past that now. This is uncharted territory. So what was your next move?
Our next move was to query the system. We had something called Versa, but I don't want to. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but we were able to push a button, and it would give us an audio report on possible failure mode.
Okay.
And in this case, and in each of those 10 missiles, we got the same report, and it was channels 9 and 12, guidance and control system failure. So that meant the guidance system was inoperative or not working properly. Therefore, we couldn't properly launch missiles because they would have no valid information on the targeting or how to guide themselves towards the target, right?
Right.
We had an inertial guidance system. In other words, there was no connection with some satellite that would help navigate after launch.
Right.
It had to do the calculation in flight to make sure it was on target.
Right. And so essentially, if anything happens, it's able to course correct.
Yeah, to some extent.
Yeah, right.
And
those are the aspects that are being tampered with specifically.
Yes, guidance and control.
Weird. Oh, that's really specific.
Well, not specific, but at least the general idea was the guidance system was not operating properly, and that's why it shut down.
So if the president had called your facility and said, we need to launch right now, could you have done it?
No.
No. Now, would you consider that a threat to national security?
Well, it certainly, we were debilitated, or we were unable to perform our function, if you want to consider that a threat. But technically, yes, right? We lost that capability.
Right.
So, but that's not the conclusion I finally came to, and we can go into that later.
Right.
But so the next thing we did, because we had two of the launch facilities, or the missiles, had incursion lights. We had lights that would are indicative of possibilities that someone or something or something was entering the launch facility where the missiles were actually located. They were about a mile or two or three away from where we were located. The missiles were not right next to us, in other words.
Right. So they're
They're dispersed.
They're all over, right?
An odd ring around us, right? So I had to call upstairs and ask the flight security control to send teams out to two of those sites and check on whether or not someone had entered that area.
Right.
And when they got out there, they saw these UFOs, or objects, or bright lights hovering just above those facilities. And they were so frightened from the experience of the first one that they saw that they didn't want to go any further.
I wouldn't either.
And so they were brought back. And in that process, they lost radio contact with us for some reason.
Huh.
At any rate.
At any rate, I want to ask you this. You did not know at the time, when your event happens, that this may seem strange and it may seem odd, but it's not. You're not the only nuclear facility that has this happen. In that form, there's other people that are having similar experiences, but you guys aren't talking about it.
Okay, so let me just continue with what happened next. My commander called the Wing Command Post at Malmstrom, which monitored activities throughout the field of missiles, and reported our incident. And they told him the same thing happened at another launch control center. And that's what he told me when he was finished with his phone call. He turned to me and said the same thing happened at another site. And I thought, we're having this problem all over the place and that evening. But I was later able to realize that it happened. What he was referring to was the Echo flight incident, which happened 8 days before ours. We had never been briefed on, by the way, to answer your question. We were never told that there had been previous incidents like ours with an object shutting down missiles. We were never briefed on something like that.
I think you should have been.
Absolutely, we should have been.
Be on the lookout for these orange lights that can shut down our nuclear weapons.
Of course.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. I did not know that night. Maybe I just glazed over that detail. I didn't know that night they had said, this has happened before.
That's what they told my commander.
Okay, so when do you find out about Dave?
Dave came forward. I'll let him explain when he did that, and then we made contact and talked, and he's come and testified with us at the press club, National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and at other times. In 2013, I think he was also there at the mock hearing that we had that Steve Bassett set up.
Right.
Yeah.
Really. So Dave, can you tell me what happened with you and how you fit into the overall narrative?
What I can tell you is that I was involved with an incident, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But first, I want to describe a little bit like Salas did regarding the layout of the facilities at Minot Air Force Base. We had 15 launch control centers and 150 nuclear-tipped missiles altogether, ICBMs. And they were spread probably 50 to 75 miles around the town of Minot, North Dakota. And they still exist, and they're still being manned today, those launch control centers, launch control facilities. We call them facilities for that the building's top side, and LCCs are launch control centers down below, 60 feet below those buildings. And each one of those launch control facilities, or launch control centers, were named with alphabet identifications from Alpha flight to Oscar flight.
Right.
And I was mostly involved with Kilo, Lima, Mike, and November flights. And my normal duty station was Mike flight. Well, I told you about 5 flights that the 742nd Squadron maintained. There were also another 2 squadrons in the what we call the wing, which composed the alphabet below Lima flight. So there gives you a picture. And my incident that I was involved with happened at November flight, and which is about 37 miles from Minot Air Force Base. And so to go into this incident a little bit more, my commander were designated to replace the crew at November flight. And this was on September 25th, 1966, which was about 6 months prior to Robert Salas's incident. And so my commander and I, Major Gordon Tollerud, traveled by vehicle because it was the closest flight to the base. We traveled by vehicle to November flight, and we talked a little bit about this because we had a hint that morning that something was going wrong, possibly going wrong in November flight. The reason is because I heard a TV broadcast in Minot. I lived in Minot, which is 13 miles from the base. I heard a TV cast that morning that said, residents of Mulhall, North Dakota saw strange lights overnight west of town. Well, we were going to November flight, like I said, and November flight was 3 miles west of the town of Mulhall.
So you both, you realize you both hear stories of sightings prior to your incidents. You're both hearing it happening in the town right before it happens on the base.
Well, I don't think Mr. Salas, you can speak for yourself, but I don't think he was aware of any incidents at all around.
Oh, no, yeah,
flight.
Right.
Yeah.
In your respected areas is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? You both heard chatter that there were lights in the sky and the townspeople are seeing them. And then it's like an omen, and then it happens to the base.
Right.
It's really weird.
And you have to understand that my incident was at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, and his was at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana.
Right.
So, and different time periods.
Right.
And his was 6 months after mine. So
the MO is just it seems that they're seen in large numbers by townsfolk, and then the towns are in reference to these nuclear sites, and then they make their way to the nuclear sites. So,
well, evidently, people in Mohall, North Dakota, saw evidence of these lights west of the town. So my commander and I went through the town of Mohall on the way to November flight, and I don't recall seeing a resident at all as we zipped through town. And it was a Sunday morning, but it was about 10:30.
Church time.
10:30 in the morning, maybe so.
Yeah.
Anyway, then a short time later, we arrived at November flight, got the gate opened, and went in and parked. My commander immediately went to the security section of the flight of the launch control facility, where the security guards were mostly stationed, especially the FSC, the flight security controller. I went in the back door of the building and was immediately met by the site manager, who was a tech sergeant. And he said, "Did you hear what happened overnight?" And I said, "No. We did get a briefing at a pre-departure crew briefing on base that morning, where they said that a few missiles at November flight went off alert, but they gave no indication of how many or what the problem was or anything. We had no reason to question what was going on. But after that pre-departure crew briefing, there are at least 3 crews that came up to my commander and I, and they said, "Did you hear what was described on TV this morning?"
So there was a big buzz at the base.
There must have been a buzz of some sort on the base. But like I said, there's 15 crews there at the pre-departure briefing, but 3 of them came up to my commander and I and said, "Did you hear the TV broadcast this morning?"
Right.
And I'd like to make the point that you were not briefed about UFO sightings
at the pre-departure
over November flight at the pre-departure briefing, right?
No, we were never briefed, except that a few missiles at November flight went off alert. Right. They're still investigating.
But they were not briefed. We saw UFOs before they lost some of their missiles.
So is it incompetence or is it
no
cover up?
It's cover up.
And with both, I know you weren't on. I know you didn't have the same experience, but in talking to Bob and him and I got to go into Congress together. He related it to, it was a warning, not a warning, but a message to the human race. This isn't the way. This isn't how you should be using this.
We later on, especially in my case, it took a while to come to the conclusion. Why did these UFO or these objects take down the missiles? And the only thing we could come up with is that it was a warning message to us.
And what do you guys say to that? There is so much. I mean, why would they, if it wasn't to give us a warning, right? If it wasn't to take the matches out of the baby's hands, do you think that's why they're covering it up? Or is it more along the lines of they're covering up because they don't want to show weakness?
Well, the Air Force has always said, like he said, UFOs do not exist, and they pose no threat to national security. So the thing that comes to mind is that these things aren't really harassing or bent on destruction, but they're there that maybe to somehow send us a message. And if they take all 10 missiles out of commission at a certain launch facility, that's a big message.
It's saying at any time I can get here and I can stop you,
That's right.
right? I can turn the switch off like this.
I don't think that's what I can conclude.
Well, I'm gonna ask, so that's what I'd like to ask. So Bob, what as being on the facility, you know, so it's fun because we get two perspectives, right?
Well, it's not two perspectives. I think Dave and I agree that these incidents were messages to us regarding our foolish use of nuclear weapons. I'm convinced that's, oh, well, at least that's the conclusion I've drawn. But the point I did want to make is they weren't trying to tell us that we, the visitors, can shut down your missiles anytime we want, although they did demonstrate that. But I don't think that's part of the message, because that implies that they would possibly stop a nuclear war if we started down that path. So there's a subtle difference here that,
That's a good point.
yeah. However, some of the witnesses that I know that have not come forward yet tell fantastic stories of an encounter. I'll give you an example. A fellow I call Tex. It's not his real name, but he was one of the men brought to one of the Echo flight missile launch facilities, or the missile, to bring it back up on alert status. And so he was out there with a security guard doing his job, going through his procedures to bring the missile back up on alert. And he had, of course, his manual, right? But he was going through his maintenance manual. And at one point, he heard the guard upstairs, up topside, rattle the metal ladder that we had to go down into that area.
Attention.
And to get his attention, and the guard pointed up into the sky, and there's an orange ball of light, or an orange. He described it as a relatively small, like a basketball size, but it was definitely there, right above them. And so he goes up and says, report this, but I've got to get back to work. I got to bring the missile back up. That's important to do that quickly.
So I'm sorry, is he repairing it from it going down in the same fashion as it went down?
Yes, yes. This was one of the Echo flight.
So he's bringing it back
missiles.
Up from being down,
exactly.
From the UFO.
Exactly, from the incident that happened the previous evening.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he was there. He sees the object. The guard sees the object. The guard reports it. He goes back down the ladder and goes through his checklist again, his manual. And he's about to bring start it up again at a certain particular point in the manual. This is his description of his activity, all right?
Okay.
And he says, all of a sudden the missile shuts down for no reason. Goes down. Okay, so he starts over in his checklist, right? Gets to that same point in his checklist, and the missile goes down again. And he said during this period, he felt like there was a beam of static electricity. He could feel it coming down the tube, where he was.
Right. So
from apparently
the hair stand up.
Yeah, apparently from this object.
Attention.
That's so weird.
An emergency has been reported. All occupants walk to the nearest stairway exit and walk down to your assigned re-entry floor or main lobby.
Where does he go to this point?
Do not use the elevator.
And I looked up.
Walk to the
And then
nearest
it went
stairway. Do not use the elevator. Walk to the nearest stairway.
We were
Attention.
go out.
Attention. Attention. An emergency has been reported.
I don't want to leave.
All occupants walk to the nearest stairway exit.
Sorry, we just had a future Tyler. We just had that fire alarm. So edit that part out, obviously.
Okay.
But keep that part where I look in, because that was kind of funny. All right, so gentlemen, we're at Contact in the Desert. You know, we don't have to sugarcoat it. We had a fire alarm. So we did get a little bit interrupted. Took a little pause, but we were talking about this. We were talking about the gentleman that was working he was bringing the flight back on, and it kept shutting back down at that exact same spot in the checklist.
Yes.
So what happens next?
Well, just to continue that story, he told me, and by the way, this is a highly reliable individual source.
Okay.
In fact, he was at a very high position when I spoke with him in an aerospace firm. He's a solid witness, but he cannot come forward just yet. Maybe sometime in the future. But
you have my number.
To continue the story, he told me that he kept this up for multiple times, trying to bring that missile back up on alert, because that was his assignment. And it was critical that he do that. And so he kept going back to the checklist. And each time he got to the point of this one part of the checklist, the missile would shut down again while the object was still above him. And he had a conclusion. He concluded something about that. Until the object that was above him left, and it was gone, and he could no longer feel this beam of static electricity coming down at him, that he was able to bring the missile back up on alert status.
Wow.
What he concluded was whatever intelligence is operating these vehicles, they knew exactly, precisely how the missile systems worked, and to the detail of knowing where he was in his checklist and what to do to shut the missile down at that point.
So they had whoever it is, whoever they are, they have an intricate and complex knowledge of our strategic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're talking about a very highly intelligent witness, knows technology very well.
Right.
Yes.
So in your case, was anything? Can you recall anything like this happening as well at your Air Force base after the incident?
Nothing. Nobody was talking at all in base about UFOs.
So it was a completely different kind of mindset. It was a completely different response at each base.
Yes, but let me continue with my story here.
Yes.
I entered the back door of the facility, met the site manager, tech sergeant, and he, like I said, he asked me if I heard what happened overnight. Well, no, I really didn't. But I told you the story, what about the TV news,
right.
and the three crews that came up to me and said, "Did you hear what happened with regarding the news?" This was on the mind of Major Gordon Tollard and I as we traveled to base. And like I said, he entered the security center. I entered the back door and met the tech sergeant. And he then took me to the west windows of the day room of the facility. And looking out at the security fence, he pointed out there that there was an object hovering out there overnight, just beyond the security fence. and holding his arms out like that. You know, I estimated maybe the object was 80 to 100 foot wide. I don't know, but that's the way it appeared.
And a color.
And so I said, well, tell me more about the object. And was it a helicopter? And it was something I shouldn't have said because he looked a little irritated. Helicopters don't fly to the launch control facilities at night. And if they do fly in, they land on the main road, entrance road. Anyway, so what the object looked like? Well, it had bright flashing lights, and that's all he could. He couldn't adequately describe the object. They weren't like beacon lights of airplanes, which usually have red, green, and maybe white light flashing.
Right, alternating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was bright flashing lights across the width of the thing, and he had trouble determining a structure behind this nebulous glow or flashing glow or whatever it was. He couldn't really describe it, but he thought he could see a structure, a long structure, which looked like maybe the edges of a saucer or something. So, and it was hovering above the ground. It hadn't landed. And then after a few minutes, it started hovering and moving to the north of the building, to the north side where the main security fence was. And the people from the security center of the facility could see this object then, where they couldn't see it before. And it hovered there for a long time. And all 8 people, the 6 security guards and the cook and the site manager, saw this object hovering there next to the main gate. But it was partly blocked from the security center. Only a small portion of the object could not be seen because it was blocked by the garage, facility garage that was next to near the main gate. They looked at this thing and they were really frightened. And the site manager and the security guards that were centered around me and describing this incident, you could tell by their emotion and their voices and in their faces that it was very, very frightening. And they gave me no doubt that they had seen something that was something they had never seen before.
So again, you can, when Bob discusses the frantic call down to the launch control center from the launch control facility officers, that same fright is
displayed by the other security people and the senior airmen.
So can I ask you both the question? Is there any possibility that this is our government doing this to us and red teaming us with some form of next level?
There's no way, because the wing on base of 150 missiles, they had a quota meet of 95% uptime for the missiles. And they didn't dare take any missiles down on purpose just to, because they had to meet this quota every month or else they would get demerits or whatever was that.
So okay, that's a little detail, but it's one that it adds to that look. So again, are you under this impression as well?
Okay, so I absolutely agree that if the Air Force had done some sort of exercise, they wouldn't have used operational missiles to do it. These missiles were on alert status, meaning they were ready to go and all the way up the line.
And didn't you talk to your squadron commander about it was an exercise?
And when I returned to Malmstrom Air Force Base that morning, we were ordered to go to the squadron commander's office. The very first thing I asked him was this some sort of Air Force exercise,
Right.
like a readiness exercise or something like
And did
that.
we pass?
And he was white as a sheet. I'm telling you, he was just white as a sheet and said, absolutely not. And I said, well, do you know what was going on? What happened? Do you know anything about what happened? And he said, no, I know nothing about what happened or why.
And
Um,
this is very uncommon.
absolutely
This
uncommon.
is
This never happened.
There's
It's
nothing
never-
common about this at all.
right, right. Now,
Especially with 10 missiles going off alert.
right.
Yeah,
And
and plus we have the telegram that I received in the Freedom of Information Act that states specifically the fact, and this was from SAC headquarters, Strategic Air Command headquarters, this telegram to other missile bases and headquarters. And it said in that telegram specifically, and I'll paraphrase, the fact that we have no knowledge of how this could happen, or words to that effect, is of grave concern to this command. They use those words, grave concern. They wouldn't have used those words if this was some kind of an Air Force exercise. Plus, as Dave said, we would have gotten some sort of feedback on how we performed if it were an exercise, right? We never got feedback.
oh, so okay. Now, okay, so a telegram does go out after
After the Echo flight incident,
the Echo flight. Now it's getting to the point where maybe it is getting repeated, and someone's starting to like, hey, this is of grave. So now they start.
well,
Do you know if that goes anywhere?
well, oh, what do you mean?
That telegram that you FOIA'd, what was I mean, this is now documented that, right? So you would expect this is something that eventually is going to be investigated.
Some
SAC,
higher
it
officials
says-
must have known about this.
Absolutely.
And
they
we'll
knew
get
about-
into that.
They knew
a little
about
later.
the incident at Minot, and there wasn't just one, but anyway,
Yeah.
they knew about that incident that Dave knew about at Minot. And why would SAC 6 months later write a telegram that said, we don't know, we can't explain, or we need a full investigation of how this could happen. They even listed specific names of Boeing engineers that they wanted as a part of this investigation. They called for a complete and total collection of information, and for the Air Force at Malmstrom to do a thorough investigation.
Does it happen?
Absolutely, it happens. I've even got the name of the report that they finally issued. However, it is classified. We tried to get a hold of that report and they would not release it to us. But the U.S. Congress could ask for it and maybe it would be released to them. That report exists. It goes into.
Exists.
Absolutely, it exists. It's. I've got documentation that shows the title, date, whatever, of this report.
Okay.
On the Echo flight shutdown.
So if Congress were to have the right clearances, like Eric Burleson, these people could go after that document as proof that this needs to be, because if it happened in the 60s, it's probably still happening. And people
absolutely.
Something
No
is
question.
going on that we can't explain. I want to ask you guys, after you have your incidents, does the phenomena follow you? It's been reported. You don't have to go into details about anything. But is it safe? People want to know why you guys, why were you at, a lot of people wonder these things. Like, were you chosen to be a part of this in some grand design? And does the phenomena follow you through the rest of your life?
Well, I know for a fact that it made me committed to get to the truth of what happened in my case, and I couldn't wait to disclose it to the public. The public, I'm absolutely behind revealing everything I know to the public, and that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
When I thought I was able to do it and continue to do it, even though I am still technically under this NDA.
Right.
However, I've given a complete report to the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. 2.5 hours speaking to them, showing them all the evidence I had documented. And they told me I did a great job. Not to worry about my NDA, but now my story is a historical document for their purposes of documenting the phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
They told me that in writing.
Yeah.
And so since Congress set up ARROW, they should have access to this documentation. I gave them the whole thing.
Shebang.
All the documents I had, my presentation, PowerPoint presentation,
Yep.
the audio tapes I have of the witnesses, both at Echo Flight and in my case, I've got audio tapes of what the Condon investigator, when he interviewed base UFO officer Colonel Chase, where he denied everything.
Right, right. So there's a paper trail out there. Is
Absolutely.
the thing. And we walked into Mesa's office and briefed her.
Yes.
So we know. And it was the day of the November hearing. You know, it was on their mind. And in that meeting, she expressed a desire to do it an ET. You know, we use these words loosely here. UFOs and nukes in a hearing, right? And would you both testify under oath to Congress about what happened?
Yes.
I mean, I know Bob will.
Certainly.
Right. And has there any been, since, in the last year, with all these whistleblowers coming forward, with the UFO topic seemingly coming to the mainstream narrative, has Congress showed any recent interest in having you testify?
I have not been contacted to do so, even though I've reached out to not only Representative Mace again, but other members of this coalition, this UAP congressional coalition. I've reached out to other members. I've sent messages. I have asked Mr. Bassett to provide them with affidavits of some of my supporting witnesses, myself included, and they have that documentation. A lot of the Congress individuals have some of my documentation, and certainly
I know for a fact they do.
Yeah,
because I've been.
So I don't understand, except I have a theory about why they haven't proceeded yet with extending invitations to people like Dave and myself. And that is the DOD, Department of Defense, annually provides the public and Congress a statement about the nuclear capability and states categorically that nuclear deterrence is the basis of our national security. They use those words. They do not want people like us, I think, making statements that would indicate some unknown objects have the ability to shut down our nuclear capability at will, and they could do nothing about that. They don't have the answers to stop that.
So they don't want even the inkling of.
They don't want to hear the discussion had in public. No.
Period. They don't want people questioning our ability, because if you really think about it, citizens in government and military, there's this invisible handshake. It's we'll pay our taxes and follow the laws, and you protect us, and put the laws into place. So if you can't protect us from whoever they are, well, why should I pay my taxes? So it's this construct that we make with our government. Is we do, it's a give and take, and we are in charge of the government.
Well, there's another thing the public should expect, and that is they should expect visibility of what our government is doing.
Absolutely.
That they are doing, and they are informing us of how they're performing as our government.
Right.
And from what we're hearing now from whistleblowers is that they're actually have developed weapons to shoot down these objects, to destroy them, and basically declaring in secrecy, without public knowledge, that they are an enemy.
Yes.
That needs to be destroyed.
Yes. And there are people that...
And they've made this decision without public input, without public disclosure.
And we've seen how that happens with things like Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly.
How that turns out. The government isn't going to be on the right side of this, and that's why I don't think a disclosure is around any corner the way people want it to be, where a president comes out and says we're not alone.
No,
because the implications are, okay, you've lied to us for 100 years, 80 years, 100 years. What's really going on? There's too many what ifs. There's too many fingers to point and lies told for.
But whatever has been done in the past does not give them license to continue to lie to us about something like this. And the public has a right to demand the truth of their government. That's the way democracy is supposed to work.
Right. So in those terms, I think the public pressure is mounting, and guys like yourselves who now correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys had to report if you took Tylenol, right? I mean, you're very mentally sound when you're doing your job back in the day.
No, that's not correct.
So they always say that in these interviews. They say, oh, the nuclear controllers have to report if they take Tylenol.
If they saw one of us becoming an alcoholic, for example, and couldn't, function without a drink in the capsule, then that's a different story. But
you were monitored. You were monitored.
Well,
in
we don't know. I don't know how much I was monitored. I think I was. They kept tabs on us in their own way, but they didn't, bring us in for a checkup every now and then or anything like that, or checked our mental. We had mental issues.
Oh, that actually is a lot scarier, though. I wish I could continue believing they did do mental health checks every once in a while. But anyway, we'll skip past that part. That's frightening. So,
but since I just put a point on here that they do have something called a what was it called? A program where they checked. It was a reliability check on individuals involved.
Well, that's good.
In the nuclear industry, nuclear jobs like we.
That's good. Yeah. So, has the phenomenon followed you in your life?
I never got to finish my story, and that's very important for some things that you need to know.
Oh, sorry. So continue.
And the public needs to know about our incident and why not.
Sorry, this
I agree
drill,
with
really.
everything Robert Salas has said.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that people need to know.
Absolutely.
But the people I was talking to topside,
Right.
they are very frightened of what they saw. And the last thing what they saw was this object shooting up off the ground, off the hover maneuver behind the main gate. This thing shot up within a second and disappeared. It was gone. Talk about defying the laws of physics. This thing really did. And that is what gave them the impression that this object was not man-made, that it was interplanetary or something. It was an object they had never seen before. They had never seen this thing operate like it did. It was just gone. When my commander and I went down, after receiving our 38 revolvers, which they issued at that time, and we strapped them on and took the elevator down 60 feet, opened 2 blast doors to get into the capsule. And when we walked into the capsule, we saw the launch control console at the far end of the room had all red lights. All 10 missiles were off alert and unlaunchable. We had never seen anything like that before. Sometimes we'd go to a capsule and maybe we'd see 1 or 2 missiles off alert, but they were scheduled for periodic maintenance. It was normal. That's why you couldn't get 100% uptime for these missiles. And that's why they also struggled to keep those maintenance periods as short as possible, and those missiles operating like they should to get the 95% uptime.
Right.
We then turned to the crew and went through the crew changeover procedures, which was opening the safe next to the launch control console and inventorying the go code and the keys to launch the missiles. When the crew changeover was complete in that regard, we questioned the crew extensively about what had happened and how all those missiles went off alert. We discussed EMF pulses and so forth and so on. But we realized that there had to have been some sort of signal from that UFO to each one of the missiles, to the equipment in the launch control center, and through those hardened cables. We couldn't come to any decision at all on how that could have happened. It was beyond the realm of physics that we knew. And it was questionable whether the scientists could ever figure this out with the physics that we had.
So you guys are actively thinking about how such a thing could actually happen, right?
Exactly.
If there's no conceivable, adversary that would be able, that you guys know, or any way that you really know how such a thing could occur.
That's exactly right.
You could not come to a conclusion.
We could not come.
The conclusion was unidentified.
Yeah, and to us it was shocking. We just could not fathom what had happened.
Right.
Because we didn't know, we heard about saucers mentioned before, but not in connection with the Air Force or any of the job that we were doing. And go ahead.
Do you think that, now the Air Force has been notoriously quiet, so the Navy has talked, the Navy released the videos.
Let me get into that. The crew left, and when they arrived on base, they were ordered to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Both the commander of that crew, who, by the way, is still living, and the deputy. The crew commander is still living. I talked to him in 2014.
Okay.
And I recognized him right away. It was at an Air Force reunion. It was the second time I had seen him for many, many years, but I recognized him because I made it a point to, because he was from the different squadron. He was from the 740th Squadron. I belonged to the 742nd Squadron that had the 5 launch control centers.
Right.
he was never questioned by the Air Force about what happened. As soon as he signed his non-disclosure agreement, they excused him. The deputy likewise was not questioned. Were you questioned at all by the Air Force?
Not at all. And the same thing happened to me after I signed my non-disclosure agreement. I was excused from his office, the squadron commander's office, and left. They never asked a question about our experience. What happened? How did it happen?
And the same thing with the crew that we relieved. They were asked any questions at all. They were excused also after the non-disclosure agreement.
Now let me
And
ask.
my commander and I, when we left the next day and went to base, it was like nothing ever happened, because my commander received a call overnight from the Air Force Office of Special Investigations telling us to keep our mouth shut. We were told, as far as you're concerned, it never happened, and keep your mouth shut for as long as you live.
Okay, let's conjecture a little bit here. Why do you think the Air Force never queried or asked us questions about our experience?
What does that tell you?
What does that tell you?
Number one, UFOs definitely exist.
Number two.
And the second one was that this happened many times before.
That's exactly what I was getting at. The Air Force did not need to ask me what happened, because
or any of us.
They already knew, because this had happened many times before.
Before January 25, 1966.
Yeah.
Guys, you're blowing my mind, but I don't even know what to say to that, because now we have Danny Sheehan waiting outside now, and
Okay.
So again, will you testify in front of Congress if given the opportunity?
I will definitely testify, yes.
Absolutely.
What happens if they don't call you in the next couple of years?
Well, I will continue to present my evidence in any way I can, in podcasts, in speeches like this at the conventions, and in other ways, my writings. I will continue to press the government to push agencies like the Air Force to come up with the truth. And with the help of Mr. Danny Sheehan and others,
yes,
maybe we can get some action.
We'll get this done.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me at Contact in the Desert. I want to say
You're
thank
welcome.
you. You guys are really great friends, and continue doing what you're doing, and we're going to get you there.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thick. 2 men, rotated every 24 hours, keep around-the-clock vigil.